How do
Mm.
we flip that? And let's go people first, then our customers, and that will lead to profits. That was our belief. If we could grow and develop our people, then they'll take better care of our customers, and the customers being taken care of will lead to more profits. So we flipped that model upside down and just started chipping away at every aspect of the dealership. That was the standard order of profit, customer, employee, and now we made it employee, customer, profit. And that was really the game changer for us.
Welcome, Glenn, to Leadership in the Dealership. This is the podcast where we sit down with today's thought leaders, and today we get to sit down with you. So, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I want to get all the way into everything that you got going on because there's so much there, and you've built such a powerful brand with Rise and Grind, and it's resonated with so many people across the globe. What would you say is like the driving force behind this show that you have? And then how has this impacted you in your personal and professional life?
Oh my goodness. I would say the driving force is I have discovered that for some reason God chose me and gave me this desire to bring people together, equip them with the tools they need to succeed, and inspire them to be great. And so as far as I can remember, I remember being in kindergarten, bringing kids together, reading books to them and trying to inspire them to go chase their dreams. And in middle school, I held a big talent show so we could bring people together, equip them with the tools they need to succeed, inspire them to be great. We raised a bunch of money around that. And so it's just kind of always been the ongoing theme. And then obviously with the advancements in technology and things like, Facebook and these lives and so on and so forth, I just felt compelled to bring people together, equip them with the tools they need to succeed, and inspire them to be great. What I didn't know is when I started doing that show back in January of 2018, what I didn't know is the impact that it would have on me, on my family, the disciplines that I would learn.
Mm.
Um, I had to learn about sleep cycles so I could get up at 3:20 in the morning so that I could produce this 5:30 a.m. morning show. And I had to learn how to use different technology, and because I do travel all over the place. So how do you do a consistent daily morning show? And when you're on the road and you're traveling and you're in hotels and planes and trains and all these other things. And so it really impacted my life. And I would say the biggest way that it impacted my life is it helped me to see that our flaws and our imperfections, if we are comfortable displaying those with gratitude, it's an opportunity for others to find us, right? The more masks we have on, the more we hide, the more that we are ashamed of or embarrassed of, the right people can't find us. Whereas
Mm.
when we are authentic and real and honest and raw, which there's nothing more authentic, real, and honest and raw than doing a show at 5:30 a.m. live. I promise you that. It's about as raw as it gets. And people were able to find me, the right people. And so I didn't expect that in the beginning, to learn that about myself, that it's really the imperfections and the flaws and the things that make us human that's most attractive. But that was probably has been my biggest takeaway as long as we've been doing this.
Wow. You caught me when you said 3:20 wake up.
Yeah.
So that made me immediately think about what time do you go to bed? If you have to wake up that early to be on your A game for this morning show, like what does that nighttime routine look like if you gotta be up that early?
Yeah, so 11 PM is when I go to bed, 11
Ooh,
PM
late.
on the nose, so 4 hours and 20 minutes, which is 2 sleep cycles, 2 hour. We all sleep in these cycles from REM sleep to deep sleep, et cetera, et cetera. And, they usually are between 90 minutes and 3 hours for most people, so mine is 2 hours and 10 minutes. So I just stack sleep cycles, 2 hours and 10 minutes sometimes if I'm on the West Coast, that's all I get. 4 hours, 20 minutes is the standard. And if I'm being a little lazy, I might go 6.5.
Jeez. You're making me, reconsider my 7 or 8 hours of sleep and seeing how I can even stack some cycles there to maximize, but wow, okay. Um, I did a little bit of research, before getting into this interview with you, because I find your story really fascinating. And, for those that maybe are not aware that you were homeless for a period of time and you kind of have gone from that to becoming like one of the most successful sales leaders out there in the industry. So I'm curious, like, what lessons did that experience teach you? And how has that kind of shaped your leadership and leadership style?
Yeah, so when it comes to homelessness, most people think homelessness would suck because you don't have a roof over your head, you don't have a bed to lay on, obviously you don't have money in your pocket, things like that. But really, the worst part of homelessness is that you become invisible.
Mm.
People won't make eye contact with you. They'll look above you, below you, to the left of you, to the right of you, but nobody ever actually looks at you. And no one ever says your name. And there's so much power in a name, right, Danielle? Like, it's
Mhm.
powerful. And so what I learned from that experience is what it's like to be invisible, what it's like to be nameless, and how miserable that can be. And so the way that I implement that now is I make sure to go out of my way to make sure people feel seen, people feel heard, people feel significant. I use people's names all the time. On my daily morning show, I say good morning to everyone that tunes in. I don't just say, hi, y'all. I say, hey,
Right.
Danielle, thanks for joining me this morning. Lauren, thanks so much for getting us set up on the podcast here, right? Like, it's really important to me that I use people's names and that I help people to feel seen, heard, and significant because I don't want anyone to ever experience that invisible feeling that I experienced.
Yeah. You saying that kinda makes me think, like, that's so true that so often when we see somebody homeless, you do kinda just, like, you're avoiding them because you don't wanna have that engagement with them, but it's it's gotta be a crazy experience kinda going through that. Can you kinda talk about, like, how you went from that to getting in and kind of launching your business and kind of taking that dealership that you were a part of for such a small number to growing it 800%, which is, like, fathomable. You did this, and every time I'm like, "How did he do it? I wanna know the tea, like, how did he do this?" Like, what were you say were, like, some of the key reasons that you had to when you got into that environment, you had to kinda change to make it be that way?
Yeah, so I think, coming out of homelessness, for me, I got very lucky as far as there were people that God put in my path, strangers that ultimately pointed me in a direction where I was able to start learning more about who I was and also whose I was. When I went into homelessness, I was a firm believer that we were just two part, right? Mind, body. And my answer to everything was if it looks good and it feels good, the answer is yes. And it wasn't until I learned that we are actually three part, mind, body, and spirit. And if it looks good and it feels good and it is good, then the answer is yes, right? So adding that extra dynamic to my life really shifted things for me because I had a very Darwinistic approach on life and I was very self-centered. Life was all about me up until that point. And so coming out of homelessness, I was able to make that shift. And then when I moved I had to get out of my hometown to start fresh. And so I moved to Kentucky and I landed at this small dealership in a tiny little town, Paris, Kentucky. And going in, I just had this new look on life where the job wasn't a means to an end for me. The job became a platform for me to be able to pour into others, elevate others, help others grow, help make an impact in other people's lives. And so when I first walked into this dealership, I realized that's not how this thing is designed, right? Like the car visit is
Mhm.
not designed to elevate the individual. It's designed to elevate the dealership, right? That's why everybody's working 70 hours a week and, all of those things. And so we decided, luckily, the owner of the dealership was an incredible human being who mentored me, who helped me grow and who believed in me. And having him in my corner, we were able to look at every aspect of the automotive industry and say, how do we shift this to where instead of it being a profit first mentality, followed by a customer centric mentality, followed by our people, right? How do
Mm.
we flip that? And let's go people first, then our customers, and that will lead to profits. That was our belief. If we could grow and develop our people, then they'll take better care of our customers, and the customers being taken care of will lead to more profits. So we flipped that model upside down and just started chipping away at every aspect of the dealership that was in the standard order of profit, customer, employee. And now we made it employee, customer, profit. And that was really the game changer for us.
When you implemented that change, were people taken aback by it? Or did you have a lot of people, a lot of detractors, people saying, like, that'll never work. This is the way it's always been. Like, how did you change the mindsets of these people who've been doing it one way for so long?
People still tell me today that that will never work. They're like, I work with dealers all over the United States of America now. Actually, I have a meeting tomorrow with a very successful dealer, East Coast dealer, who's got double-digit rooftops, and his exact words were, "I do not believe that that is a sustainable model, and I need you to jump on a call with me and help me to understand this." Because people just don't buy into it, and there is a way that we've done things in this industry for a very long time. With that said, buy-in is not necessary for change. I know a lot of people think that we have to have buy-in. Everybody's got to buy in. Everyone's got to believe. Everyone's got to, participate in order for change to happen. And that's really not the case. You just have to have a leader who's very, very, very clear on the mission, and the results will drive buy-in. So we lost a lot of people as we transitioned into this new model of how we were running things. We lost a lot of people along the way, and I wished them, as we lost them, I wished them the best in all of their endeavors. But this was the path we were going to be on. And now, fast forward, the results speak for themselves. We went from selling 120 cars a month to selling 850 cars a month. That dealership now has 3 additional dealerships that are all top performing dealerships in the United States of America. And so the proof is in the pudding. The results are there. Um, but if you have an expectation of everyone seeing your vision, if you have an expectation that everyone's going to agree, if you have an expectation that everyone's just going to jump on board because you have an amazing idea, I'm here to tell you, throw that out the window. Stay the course, keep your nose down. And if you truly believe in it, in time, others will fall into a belief as well.
Yeah, because when you said that it doesn't require everybody to get on board, I immediately my ears perked up because, my background is working with different technology companies and helping dealerships implement new processes with technology. And so often there is always those people at the dealership who are very against change, and dealers are against change just in general. But in my experience and kind of based on what you're saying, so true. Like if the leader at the store is bought in and truly believes it's going to work, they can guide the rest of the store to that. But so often it's so difficult because depending on which people at the store are not bought in, they can really be that cancer that kind of tries to poison the rest of the staff. So I'm curious when you kind of go into a new dealership and you kind of assess the team, do you have to, like, empower that leader to kind of speak to the store the way kinda you would speak to them? Like, how do you go about doing it when a lot of times you're going into a store where maybe the leadership isn't a strong suit at that store? Because let's be honest, leadership isn't always a strong point at some of these dealerships. So I'm curious how you handle that.
Yeah, so it's evolved over the years. We've now been on the training and consulting side for 5 years. We just broke the 5-year mark 2 months ago. And it's kind of evolved. At first, I was only working with owners and GMs. That's all I would work with. And feedback that I got consistently was, we can move the needle so far. right? Like dealerships would get results with me working with the owner or the GM, but nobody was getting 800% results. They were getting 200%,
Mhm.
150%, 100%, right? But nobody was getting 800. It's like, well, why aren't we getting 800? And it's based on what you said right there. Is a strong leader, one individual can move, can move the boulder a certain distance. But at some point, there are other leaders that have to jump in. There's other people in the dealership that have to start to participate to really get that thing rolling. And so we have changed our company to where now we consider ourselves a whole dealership solution. And anybody that's in our program, we work with everyone in the program. We work with the salespeople, the sales managers, the GSM, the GM, the finance managers, the service department. We're working with everyone because there's this weird phenomena. Do you have any kids, Danielle?
I have one officially who's just turned 10 months.
Okay, just turned 10 months. You haven't, well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And you haven't quite experienced it yet. But what you're going to experience is that you're going to tell your kid something 100 times and they're not going to listen to you. And then a relative or a friend or whatever, somebody at an event is going to tell your kid that exact same thing. And they're going to be like, oh, this is the most amazing thing that's ever happened in the history of all time. It's this weird thing. And so we come in now, and the leader can tell the salespeople, hey, yeah, we need to do this. We need to do this, do this. Yeah, maybe they listen, maybe they don't. But then Evan, my guy who's only 29 years old, might come in and say, hey, this is what we should be doing. And then Sam comes in, who's got a little different personality, and then Dylan, and then myself, and they start to hear it. And our intention is to finally be able to connect with that person. And maybe it's somebody that maybe they need to connect with someone that looks like them, walks like them, talks like them, someone who's the same age as them, someone with the same history or background, right? Like you always have to find some sort of common personal ground before we can actually get someone to move. And so that's what we're doing now. And we've been seeing tremendous results with that. Is once we can get everybody on the team, involved in the program, it's easier to spread and disseminate that information and get more people pushing the boulder in the right direction.
I love that by having all the different people, it allows whoever is trying to get that message to connect with whoever they're getting it from. So it's
Mhm.
like, I could totally see that that makes a really, really big impact. So I'm glad that you spoke on that because a lot of people listening to this podcast are wanting tips when it comes to leadership and ways to kind of move the needle at their stores. I love the fact that you've introduced this lead with 2 Ds framework,
Yeah,
listen, encourage, advise, develop, and
that's
daily
right.
as part of yet I get it, as part of this leadership style. Can you break down this framework and kinda go into the what how you came up with this and kinda what it means? Because I love that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm a simple person. I'm a bit caveman. And so I look for patterns in everything. And I'm a big fan of like acronyms, short and sweet, like let's make it easy. Right. And so when we were growing and scaling this dealership, what I learned is that we have a system and a process for how we navigate a customer through a deal. We have a system and process on how we contract a deal. We have a system and process on how we clean a car. We have a system and process on how we check a vehicle in. We have systems and processes for everything in the dealership except for duplicating leadership. There's no system to duplicate leadership, right? We just expect people to follow along, catch on, pick up, hang shadow that person, or you'll pick it up over time or whatever. There's no actual system to duplicate leadership. So I thought, okay, well, what have the greatest leaders in my life? What did they do for me? How did they make an impact on me? And as I went through it, I was like, well, they listened to me. Great leaders listen twice as much as they speak. They
Mhm.
encouraged me. Great leaders know how to pat somebody on the back. They know how to edify. They know how to uplift and empower. The greatest leaders in my life also advised me. They advised me of the areas where I was failing. They advised me of things that I needed to pay attention to focus on. They advised me of my weaknesses. They were kind enough to do that. And then the greatest leaders in my experience would take the time to develop me. They would actually teach me the skills, not just tell me, hey, go out there and tell them this, but they would show me and develop me and hold my hand as I went through the process. And the greatest leaders did this for me daily. So I was like, okay, Lead, right? Leader, Lead, or lead, Lead. Listen, encourage, advise, and develop. And let's do that daily. So let's put another D on the other side. Now we can duplicate leadership. So when I'm taking a salesperson or a kid from detail or whatever, and I'm putting them into a leadership type position, now I can actually give them a formula. And I can say, hey, Danielle, you're now going to be a sales manager. And here's how I want you to lead. I want you to listen to your people. I want you to encourage your people. I want you to advise your people. And I want you to develop your people. I need you to do that daily. Anytime you go into a conversation with someone that you're leading, I want you to listen to them, encourage them, advise them, and develop them. Before you pick up a call to talk to a customer, I want you to listen to them. Or when you pick up the phone to talk to a customer, I want you to listen to them, encourage them, advise them, and develop them. When you're having a conversation with your kids, I want you to listen, encourage, advise, and develop. When you're having a conversation with your spouse, I want you to listen, encourage, advise, and develop. And what happens is you can now create and duplicate leaders with a very short acronym that people are able to grasp and hold on to, and they can practice. And over time, you duplicate all those great leadership qualities that we're all looking.
I love that so much because I'm sure so many of the listeners that are hearing you right now, their first experience in a dealership environment was getting thrown to the wolves and just figure it out. And, the school of hard knocks of just like, yeah, just go sell a car, like figure it out. And having these frameworks and these systems in place just really allows somebody to feel supported in that and really elevate. So I love that you are implementing this across the country with your consulting and your guidance because there's John Maxwell quote where everything rises and falls with leadership. Like it is everything. And I feel like it's something that is taken for granted so often and why dealers have success or which ones are failing, which ones are succeeding. And there is always a tie to that. And you kind of are hitting the nail on the head with that. So I'm so glad that it is like the core of everything that you're doing. So I'm curious for you with all of the success and all the accomplishments that you've had thus far, what would you say you want your ultimate like legacy to be in this space? And what are your goals for 2025?
Well, thank you for the kind words, by the way. I really appreciate that. And as far as my goals are, my legacy in this space. So my legacy in this space is the same as the legacy that I want in my personal life. And it really comes down to a picture of the end. So when I pass away and my coffin is up at the front of the room, my hope is that the room is filled out the doors, people pouring out the doors and down the hallways and out into the road. And I want all of these people there, and I want my kids lined up next to my coffin. And as the kids are lined up next to my coffin, I want one by one, thousands of people to literally walk past my children, look them in the eye and say, your dad made a positive impact in my life over and over and over and over and over. For me, this whole automotive thing, all the things that we're doing, I know that my children have tremendous opportunities to change the world in whatever ways they want to change the world. And I know that sometimes we just need someone in our lives to be an example of that. And so I want to be that example for my kids, and I do that through my work, right? So the more people I can get to line up and say, hey, Glenn made a massive impact in my life for my kids, the more likely my kids are to continue that legacy and go out and make a positive impact in other people's lives as well. As far as goals for 2025, um, we have a lot of big ones. Over the years, we've taken small swings, what I consider small swings, and now it's time to really elevate the game. So I'm looking to connect with Lex Studios, which is a local studio here in Lexington, Kentucky, to produce the #1 morning show in the world. That's one of our goals for 2025. Uh, Also in 2025, we just cracked 800 members in 800% Club. And now that we've hit that number, I believe that we can exponentially grow that over the next 10 months. So we want to get from 800 to 8,000 members in 800% Club. That's a big target of ours. And then our current clients, I have a lot of clients in my program that have seen great results. I don't have a single one that's hit 800%. I want my clients to grow 800%. I want to be able to duplicate what we did for them. And so that's one of my targets this year. Now that we have the whole dealership solution, I feel like we have an opportunity to really move the needle for some of these stores.
No, I love that. There's so many awesome things that you have on the horizon with all of those different goals. I think that you totally are gonna make that happen. I feel like I need to you've inspired me to wanna wake up earlier tomorrow and catch one of your episodes because that is, like, the best start of your day is, like, starting it with the right energy and the right impact. Before we wrap things up, can you maybe speak to you work with so many different dealers across the country. Is there any one dealership that comes to mind that you wanna give maybe a shout out to for the way that they've kind of embraced what you've shown them and have kind of really taken it to the next level? We usually do, like, a dealer spotlight, but I feel like since you work with so many awesome dealers, is there anybody that you'd like to shout out for what they've been doing and speak to why you're shouting them out?
Yeah, so there's probably, oh, I just have, we have a wide variety of dealers, right? I've got domestic dealers, foreign dealers, independent dealers, franchise dealers, dealership groups, single points, dealers in big cities and dealers way out in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And so there's different wins for us to celebrate with each of them. Um, but if I had to kind of be specific on one or two, I would say Brad Wise with Furman Chevrolet down in Tampa, Florida.
Hmm.
Brad has been in our program for a few years now. He's seen tremendous results. The way that he leads is just incredible. And what I love most about Brad, and the reason he probably stands out the most, is Brad is very innovative. Brad is a visionary. Brad is very successful. And at the same time, if you tell him his baby's ugly, he will throw that baby out and start over with zero ego, no pride. Like, he does not care. If it is not working or if we have a better way of doing it, he will stop what they're doing. I mean, this guy completely remodeled an entire building for a cradle to grave BDC. And we went in there and I'm like, bro, that is not the way. Like, this is the better they get, the worse it gets over in this department. You can't go cradle to grave. And so he, like, the next week shuts the building down completely. And he had invested, hundreds of thousands of dollars in this thing. And so Brad has definitely embraced what it means to be 800%. And he's just an incredible, incredible leader. Another one is Patrick Abad. Patrick Abad over at Beaver Toyota. That guy right there, I've learned so much from him, as well as had the opportunity to pour into him. We ran together for a good 2 years, and he just, man, that guy puts the pedal to the metal. He's an incredible student. He absorbs material and executes on it, like, rapidly. So that would be another one. Some of my bigger stores, but then of course, I got, like, a bunch of my little stores that those guys are my guys and girls too. So there's a bunch. I love everybody in our 800% Club. They're truly an incredible group of individuals.
I love that. I feel like the common theme with everybody that you mentioned is the ability to be a teacher, wanting to learn, wanting to take the feedback and no ego,
No ego.
which is a big thing in this industry. But if you were strip the ego away, and like you said when we first started this conversation, how being genuine, exposing your flaws, that's how you get people to connect. And I'm sure these leaders have been willing to be open and to take that feedback, which is probably the hardest thing that they've had to do in this
For
experience.
sure. For sure.
So, definitely appreciate you sharing that. Any last words you'd like to leave our audience before we close it out? Any last words for how, the listeners can kind of take that into the rest of this quarter?
Well, I think the most important thing I would like to leave people with at this moment right now is there is a guy named Ross Dawson who many of the most successful people on this planet, they consider Ross Dawson to be the greatest futurist of our time. And Ross Dawson, he's basically like Nostradamus, right? Danielle, you know Nostradamus.
Mhm.
So he's like the Nostradamus of our time. The biggest difference is Ross Dawson has way more data than Nostradamus ever did. So Ross Dawson was at a press conference and he said something that just stuck with me and hopefully it'll stick with you. He said that humanity is going to evolve because of the technology, the access, all the things that we have today. Humanity is going to evolve 2,000 years in the next 100 years. So when he said that, I thought, oh my gosh, 2,000 years ago, that's like when Jesus first showed up. Like, think about all that's happened in the last 2,000 years. That's our expectation over the next 100. Then I thought about it a little bit more and I was like, well, it's hard for us to process 1,000 years or 2,000 years. And it's also hard for us to process 100 years. Most of us don't have 100 years left, right? So let's do some backwards math. If we're going to go 2,000 years of evolution in the next 100, that means we're going to evolve 100 years in the next 5. 100 years in the next 5. So I think back, what happened 100 years ago? Well, 100 years ago, Ford had just come out with the Model T. People were still going, do I really need a car? I've got a horse, my car can't go into the woods. And then fast forward to driverless vehicles and all the things that exist today. We're looking at that sort of evolution in the next 5 years. So what does that mean
Yeah.
for me and you? It means a couple things. One, it means what used to take 100 years can now be done in 5. I don't care where you are financially. I don't care what size your business is. Your business doesn't even have to exist as of right now. In 5 years, it could be the number one business on planet Earth. In 5 years, you could go from negative in your bank account to a billionaire. In 5
Yeah.
years, you could go from an unknown name to one of the most biggest names, most impactful people on planet Earth. You can do that in 5 years. We have that ability now, which didn't exist for those that came before us. But we were blessed to be in this time, in this day. So what does it mean for you? It means sky's the limit. And I don't care where you're at now, wherever it is you want to go, now's the time. I'll leave people with that.
That is awesome. I feel ready to attack the rest of the day. And you're right. There's so much that's going to happen in the next 5 years. I feel like maybe we'll have autonomous planes. We may need some right now with the way that these crashes are happening.
Hey,
We
let's not
need
talk
some.
about that right now. And I'm in the airport right now. Okay. I'm not talking.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. We're all good. Well,
No, I told my buddy, I said, well, good thing we had a plane crash yesterday. So we should be good for at least the week. Right. I should be able to get through this week. No problem. And that's what we're hoping. But yeah, it's been a little bit crazy, but it's amazing. If you think of like Ford or GM or any of these brands, they took decades on decades on decades on decades on decades to get where they are today. And then you see Tesla come out of nowhere and
yeah.
they're the number one brand in the world. They've only been around about 17 years, right? And they're like a perfect example of this. And it's just an amazing time to be alive. And it really doesn't matter what the starting point is. if you agree that now's the time, dude, there's nothing you can't achieve.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Glenn. Thank you for coming on and words of wisdom, and we appreciate you. Where can everybody find you if they want to get in touch with you and work with you potentially?
Apparently, I'm the only person named Glenn Lundy on planet Earth who actually cares about a personal brand. And so, if you just Google Glenn Lundy, you can't get away from me from that point. I'll drop a pixel on you. I'll follow you all over the place. You'll see all my ads. But Glenn Lundy, glennlundy.com, any of those places, and I would love to connect.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks again, Glenn, for coming on the show.
Yeah, you bet.